Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday with Pastor Dan. Good to have you all here on this awful, rainy, thundery day. Just funny because I've had these plans since track season's now over. All these afternoon walks we're going to take with the kid, with our son and our dog, and then things happen and the dog can't go, and then the days continue to be rainy and gross or even too hot. So these plans we made don't pan out, which is unfortunate because I really wanted to. And that made me think, like, what do we do when our plans don't come to fruition? What do we do? How do we act? How do we respond when the best plans we make either fall short or just don't work out the way that we so ingeniously to the degree planned them down? And I'm not saying that we need to fly by the seat of our pants, although I do that far more often than I probably should, but it's more my personality and my character, my nature, if you will. But what happens when those plans, are we flexible? Are we able to be fluid like water and roll with it, course correct as water does around rocks and streams and lakes and rivers and all that stuff? Or are we so rigid that we get broken, that it crumbles us? In Jeremiah 18, God talks that to Jeremiah, says, "Go down to the potter's house," and he sees the potter throwing these things, and they continue to be flawed and broken and flawed and broken and stiff and rigid, not malleable. And there's some sense that we, when we get stiff and rigid, and we become so grasping and so fixated, and we're not open and willing to what may be happening around us. We see it as against the plan. Well, maybe it's part of the plan. Maybe it's a substitute piece. Maybe it's a new direction that we can go that's a little bit better than what we had. And I think that happens when we work with people too, work with one another. Well, I have this plan, I have this idea, I have this thought, and that's the only one. And God's over here going, no, I've put these people, these places, these things that you see as a roadblock as actually part of a better plan that you could hop into. Um, in Buddhism, there's human suffering comes about from grasping. And if you think about it in many ways, it's very much like our sin is we grasp, we hold on to, and we try to hold tight. And when we hold tight to something, it causes pain and suffering, uh, sin, if you will. And when we release those things, when we become fluid and flexible, when we become more focused on the breath, the spirit, the life that we're here for instead of every meticulous little detail, all of a sudden there's a lot less suffering and pain and hardship because we're able to just relinquish some control, and supposed to relinquish all control actually and give that to God. But and the reality is, I think that when our best plans always fall short, and we cause anxiety, and then that leads to fear and it leads to frustration, when is if we are more fluid and flexible and we're more open to the spirit, to God's movement, to what's happening around us, to the people around us, the places maybe where we're supposed to be or not supposed to be, we'd be really surprised at just how much joy and peace and a whole lot less anxiety happens in those places. And we all learn to be a bit more moldable, malleable, like clay on the potter's wheel, a little more flexible in our plans and our lives, so that God can mold us to be the people that God wants us to be. You all have a blessed week. Look forward to seeing you soon.